Winds threaten to undo progress made by firefighters. Jonathan Hunt has more from a command center in Pasadena.
The entire response is being managed from here, the Unified Command Center in the parking lot of the Rose Bowl. Every inch of it taken over by the fire department, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department as well. And talking of firefighters, there is growing controversy today over whether the leadership of the LAFD did enough last Tuesday when those terrible fires broke out in the Palisades in particular. The LA Times reporting that something like 1,000 firefighters were allowed to go off shift last Tuesday morning despite the wind warnings, which would be extraordinary, of course, that they weren't kept in place.
Two House Democrats have voted alongside Republican lawmakers to ban athletes born male from participating on girls' school sports teams. The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act would amend federal law to specify that student athletes must participate in school sports teams that coincide with their gender at birth. Left-wing Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had this meltdown on the House floor.
Republicans who have voted consistently against the Violence Against Women Act now want to pretend today that they care about women. And why? To open up gender and, yes, genital examinations into little girls in this country in the so-called name of attacking trans girls. Trans girls are girls.
Women's sports advocate Riley Gaines says this Democrat is not only unhinged, but also ignorant.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. If she spent 2 seconds reading the bill, she would know this has nothing to do with genital inspections. This has nothing to do with any sort of anatomical examination. This resorts to birth certificates and a routine physical, which every athlete already has to complete to be able to play their sport anyway. Continue to see them tout about women's rights. And she mentions the Violence Against Women Act. Do we remember how AOC voted on the Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act? Because she voted in opposition. So, I mean, look at these people. Look how they voted on the Laken Riley Act. Look how they voted on the Save Women's Sports Act. And if they were a no on one or both, then they do not get to continue to say they support women and women's rights.
More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
The Bachelor of Arts in Christian Ministry at Wesley Biblical Seminary is the perfect opportunity to prepare for God's calling on your life. It's easy to make excuses why you can't pursue what God has called you to do, but this program removes those barriers: flexible class options, an affordable cost, and highly trusted professors. WBS is the school for you, and now is the time to take a next step and prepare for God's calling on your life. Learn more at wbs.edu. That's wbs.edu.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening on this Wednesday, January the 15th, 2025. Joining me in studio is Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Wesley Wildmon.
Hola.
And Fred, you might as well go for French right here.
Okay.
Fred Jackson.
Bonjour.
Okay, there we go.
Ça va?
See, people, we are DEI. We are. We got it covered. We got multiple languages here. So thanks for joining us on the program today. A lot to talk about. Live radio here. So happening in Washington, D.C. right now, Fred, is what?
Wow. We have the Senate confirmation hearings that are underway right now at this very moment. President-elect Trump's pick to be Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is in the hot seat today. We're going to give you a little flavor of what's been going on there in the last 20 minutes in just a moment as soon as we get that audio. But yesterday, President-elect Trump's pick to be Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was in that hot seat and went on for hours. And he perhaps has been one of the more controversial picks by Donald Trump. And I guess we could have expected what happened yesterday. A lot of information has come out about Pete Hegseth's background, divorces, etc., drinking problems. He's fully admitted to it. That was the focus. That was the focus overall of the Democrats on that committee. They don't think he has the character. Now, Pete Hegseth, and we're going to play you some audio here in just a second. Pete Hegseth says, yes, that's part of my background, but I've asked forgiveness of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He has forgiven me. My wife stands behind me. We're moving on from this. They didn't want to talk about the excellent service he has given to the U.S. military, his background on that. And, of course, because he's Donald Trump's pick, they don't like him for that reason.
Right.
You know, that he's going to be in the pocket of Donald Trump, et cetera, et cetera. So let's start off with a little montage of the back and forth yesterday between the Democrats on the committee and Pete Hegseth. Cut number 5.
Are you saying that 50% of the DOD, if they hold liberal views or leftist views or are Democrats, are not welcome in the military? Are you saying that?
Senator, I volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan under Democrat President Barack Obama. I also volunteered to guard the inauguration of Joe Biden, but was denied the opportunity to serve because I was identified as an extremist by my own unit for a Christian tattoo.
Can you give me an experience or your actual experience of driving innovation in an organization? Give me an example of where you have done that.
Oh my goodness, Senator, absolutely. At Concerned Veterans for America, we created the Fixing Veterans Healthcare Task Force, a bipartisan task force that had never been done before, to create policy, to drive policy change on Capitol Hill.
Have you been personally involved in discussions of using the U.S. military active duty inside the United States?
Senator, I'm glad we finally got to the topic of border security equaling national security, because it's been abdicated and ignored. I have been involved in conversations relating to doing things this administration has not, which is secure the southern border.
Yeah, so that's just a little bit of a taste there.
I can see why they don't like him. Yeah.
One of the reoccurring
Democrat,
themes yesterday was remarks that Pete Hegseth has given with regards to women in combat roles. They kept coming back to that. He said, here's my point. Everybody must meet the same standards. In other words, equalness applied to standards, not equity, which has been a recognized problem within the military. One standard for a group of people, another standard for another group of people. He says it's going to be the same standard for everyone.
There you go.
He made that very, very clear. But, of course, Democrats don't like to hear that because DEI and equity have been so important priorities for them. It was interesting yesterday that Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren at one point tried to corner Hegseth about generals going into the defense industry, and she regretted asking that question. Cut number 3.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals?
Yeah, that was a moment. She wasn't expecting that sharp answer. There was another one, too, with regards to his statements, his stand, very open about it. What's going to happen to those members of the military who were thrown out of the military because they refused to take a experimental shot? Yes. All right. This is what he had to say about that. Cut number 2.
How many other patriots, how many other people of conscience? We haven't even talked about COVID and the tens of thousands of service members who were kicked out because of an experimental vaccine. In President Trump's Defense Department, they will be apologized to. They will be reinstituted with pay and rank. Things like focusing on extremism, Senator, have created a climate inside our ranks that feel political when it hasn't ever been political. Those are the types of things that are going to change. And Senator Sullivan, you mentioned that study. After a whole study was held, extremism working group study, 100 extremists were identified in the ranks of 3 million. And most of those were gang-related. So it was a made-up boogeyman to begin with.
Now, one of the other aspects yesterday, and I mentioned this before, is that the Democrats went after saying Pete Hegseth doesn't have the right character because of things in his background. They talked about his former drinking problem. They talked about his divorce. Well, it was very interesting. At one point, a Republican senator finally responded to that as well. Senator Markwayne Mullen of Oklahoma. This is what he had to say to his Democrat colleagues on that committee. Cut number 4.
How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too.
Who is that talking?
That was Senator Markwayne Mullen of Oklahoma, Republican.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was an excellent.
I vote for the next VP.
Yeah, kind of in-your-face reply exposing the hypocrisy of the Democrats.
Let me ask you guys something about this. Maybe we shouldn't go down this. Listen, everything Pete Hegseth said right there, amen.
As it relates to the military, and yeah.
I hope he gets confirmed. I mean, that guy's. That was. I couldn't have said it better myself.
That's right.
Well, I wouldn't have. I don't have the experience that he does in the military. He knows his stuff. He knows what's going on, and he's the man for the job. I really believe that. After hearing him and seeing him, and of course I've watched him on Fox News. I know people who've known him. Yes, he had sin in his life, in his past, that he regrets, and
he didn't make excuses for either.
No, he didn't make excuses.
No, and in fact, I have seen clips of him talking about that time. This was immediately following him coming home from deployment.
That's correct.
And this is one reason why his heart is with veterans, and he wants to help veterans, because he was tore up. I mean, when he came back, and he freely admits that it had a tremendous impact on him, and for a season of his life, he was without any kind of real moral direction or moral discipline, and he caused the circumstances that led to hurt. And that's part of his testimony. And
there's a fine line here, and I don't know where you draw it exactly, between character counts and it doesn't or matter. I don't mean to sound flippant about this.
Well, you do have to go ahead.
Well, there used to be a time in our country where character, by character I mean fidelity in your marriage, not being a drunk, not being a drug addict, not abusing people verbally, and all that did matter and may disqualify you from a job. But that doesn't matter anymore to people. Maybe it matters, but it doesn't matter as much as job performance.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter as much as job performance, which I can understand. But the two used to be you had to have both, job performance and character. Now our standards in society at large, among Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals, the character issue doesn't matter as much as it used to.
I would say that's true in politics. I don't think that's still true in the church. I think the church is different. I think in politics that's the case, and the reason for that was exposed in 2015 when Trump ran. And that's because you had decades of polished, married, show-up-on-time people who didn't do what they said. And so their performance didn't match their character. And so they said, and then the general public said to themselves, you know what? You can have all the character you want, but if you lie to me again, I'm not going to vote for you. And so that's how you ended up getting a Donald Trump, a President Trump, is that he wasn't trying to polish or act like he was somebody he wasn't, in the sense that he had a long history of being a Democrat, cheating on his wives. He had a long history of a bad character, but his policies and what he did, his job performance turned out to be phenomenal. You see the issue there?
Yeah, and I would say that I think, generally speaking, Americans are forgiving. And if you're a drunk now, and if Pete Hegseth was currently cheating on his wife, I think those things.
But how far back do you go? That's why I say it's a fine line.
Well, that's why you got to. Well, you start with the Democrats. They go back 25 years. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
No,
okay. I'm making a joke because. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I think that Americans not only are forgiving, I think they love a redemption story. I think they appreciate a redemption story. So if you're someone like Trump, who has admitted, or sometimes maybe not admitted, but is known for having had affairs or divorcing past wives, but is now locked in. I mean, I think, I don't know what the state of their marriage is, but they seem to have a marriage that is built on.
But does that even matter?
Well, I think
should it matter?
I'm saying I think it does matter to a lot of people. Now, I think what you guys are also saying, it also matters to people whether you do what you're going to say,
yes,
and whether you're going to be good at what you
yes.
do. But I think with Pete Hegseth, I think people go, all right, so he messed up in the past, but now he said he's turned his life around.
Right.
I think that matters to people, and they will give a pass to someone. But what they don't like is hypocrisy, which is what Senator Mullen was saying. Let's talk about, you want to talk about what Hegseth did in the past. I want to talk about what you guys are doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in, voting drunk. That's something I don't think Americans like, is hypocrisy.
You know, one of the things, you gentlemen have been talking about character, and characters can change, and people can change. A number of times during this hearing, before the American people yesterday, Pete Hegseth gave full credit to the change in his life because he has accepted Jesus Christ as his personal Savior. I want to play you a little bit of that. Cut one.
And as Jenny and I pray together every morning, all glory, regardless of the outcome, belongs to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. His grace and mercy abounds each day. May his will be done.
Like I said, he brought that up over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that's phenomenal to do that. One of the things we've talked about, I don't know if you've got the sound on this, is that Americans also want to know you can do the job. Do we have the exchange that he had over
the firearm magazine?
Yeah,
yes,
military,
yes,
expertise, because this is Secretary of Defense is the position he wants.
Yeah, this was questioning from Republican Tim Sheehy. He's a Republican from Montana.
Yeah.
Newly elected.
Yes, junior senator.
Yes. Cut number 7.
How many genders are there? Tough one.
Senator, there are 2 genders.
I know that well. I'm a she-he, so I'm on board. What is the diameter of the rifle round fired out of an M4A1 rifle?
That's a 5.56.
How many push-ups can you do?
I did 5 sets of 47 this morning.
What do you think are most important strategic bases in the Pacific?
In the Pacific, Guam is pretty strategically significant.
How many rounds of 5.56 can you fit into the magazine of an M4 rifle?
Depends on the magazine, but standard issue is 30. Senator.
And what size round does the M9 Beretta standard issue sidearm for the military fire?
A 9mm, Senator.
Yeah.
Wow. The guy knows his stuff. And did you say he's a veteran, a longtime veteran?
Yeah. So all these things together, I think we're talking about, for Christians, that story of his redemption story is, I think a lot of Christians are going to go, all right, he messed up, but the Lord has turned his life around, like he turned my life around. For some people, they're going to say, okay, he came back from war, and his life unraveled. I understand that. Some people are going to say, look, just don't be a hypocrite about this. You got to do what you say you're going to do. I think Americans probably all over the map. But I also want to acknowledge that the days when character and what you did in the past mattered. I mean, it used to be Clinton, womanizer. That was in the past, but
and also I think what comes back on us now, and again, it's kind of a gray area, and I use the fine line, and the Bible does talk clearly about forgiveness and redemption and restoration. I mean, that's a big part of the biblical message there, throughout the Bible. But I would say, with Clinton, for example, here's what the left says. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
All right, you family values conservatives.
Right.
That's what they call us. It's a pejorative for them. Now you're supporting a guy who's 3 times married, cheated on 2 wives, was a drunk. Don't tell me, don't preach your family values to us anymore.
That would be the case if he's running for deacon.
Okay, but that's changed, Wesley. Is what I'm saying. In your lifetime, that's changed.
Okay,
you're 30 what?
35.
35. If you were to bring, you don't remember the Bill Clinton years.
No,
Bill Clinton got in trouble because he was an adulterer in Arkansas when he was governor, and it was found out after that. Well, Republicans tried to disqualify him for that reason. And
we did.
Huh?
We did at AFA.
Yes.
We said
he's not
character matters.
Character matters. But of course, then he went on to get involved with Monica Lewinsky in the White House, which was different. I mean, that's talking about in the White House while you're in active
real time. Yeah.
That was a different
thought that's
category.
What you were talking about.
No, that wasn't what I was talking about. I was talking about his previous adulterous relationships while he was governor of Arkansas, which came to light. But I'm just saying the times, to borrow from Bob Dylan, times they are changing. And we're not going to solve the issue here. I think this is kind of people have to make up their own minds individually about people. Now, with Pete Hegseth, I think enough time has lapsed between his personal problems and his where he is today. Clearly, he's talking about he's been forgiven of his sin by his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, as we all here in this room have been. And he's crediting his wife for standing with him and helping him. So, like you said, he's admitting to past failures and he's owning up to it. And he's saying, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do this job. I think, again, people have to make up their own minds individually about where that line is.
Sure.
I don't think a person that's I don't think you would find a person that embezzle money being eligible to be president of a bank.
Right. That matters too.
Huh?
Yeah,
that's what I was going to also make a distinguish between sin. There are certain there are sins that have consequences different than other sins, and can disqualify you even with a redemption story.
Yeah.
You may be a redemptive pedophile, but you're not going to be hired as a school teacher.
Right.
So there are certain. So I do think that there's things that Pete Hegseth could have done that could have disqualified him from being elected, but this isn't one of them. What he did, do you understand? So I do, I do think character still does matter, but not as
much as it used to.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
in that clip we just played of the Senator Sheehy, first question that he asked Pete Hegseth, how many sexes are there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There was no hesitation.
Right.
On Pete, there's male and there's female.
Yeah.
Not so. I remember when Ketanji Jackson Brown, who was Biden's nominee to the Supreme Court, you remember when Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn asked basically Ketanji Jackson Brown the same question?
Brown Jackson. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just preferenced it.
I guess you can shuffle it any way you want.
That's her name. Her correct name is what?
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
We're setting this up because we just were given a Republican answer to how many genders, and now we're about to get a Democrat answer.
Yes, who now sits on the United States Supreme Court. Simple question. How many sexes are there? Remember how this exchange went. Cut number 8.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a
The
biologist.
meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
Senator, in my work as a judge, what I do is I address disputes. If there's a dispute about a definition, people make arguments, and I look at the law and I decide. So I'm not.
The fact that you can't give me a straight answer about something as fundamental as what a woman is underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive education that we are hearing about.
She said that. She said she couldn't because she wasn't a biologist.
Right.
Yeah. What a nutty answer. Of course, we're revisiting 2 years ago. When was that? 2 years ago. What a dishonest answer too, because if that is said, ma'am, do you know what a tornado is? Okay, she wouldn't have said, no, I'm not a meteorologist.
Right.
She wouldn't have said. She wouldn't have said that.
And she was being touted as the first black woman
yes,
on the Supreme Court.
And
well,
she didn't,
that's got to mean
I
something.
would have asked her, well, okay, you don't know what a woman is. Do you know what a black person is?
Yeah.
No, I'm not a biologist. I mean, that goes to show you how the mental gymnastics and the lack of logic.
It's stressful to try that.
Yes, to
revisit it.
These politically correct people have that they can't. She knows what a male and a female is. She just doesn't want to say it.
Listen, I'm right here on Wikipedia, that source of information that we all go to, under Ketanji Brown Jackson. She is the first black woman.
There you go.
To serve on the Supreme Court.
But she doesn't even know what she is.
But she doesn't even know.
Huh? Listen, that kind of thinking is on the run.
The feminists and the transgender airs colliding.
Well,
it's
I
fun
think,
to watch.
I think that's what in part caused Harris to lose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Democrats to lose the Senate because people are tired of this nonsense.
Right.
So I'm thankful for Pete Hegseth for a straight answer.
There you go. Amen.
Amen.
He didn't waffle.
Amen.
He's not a biologist either.
That's a good point.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
In more than one place in my reading, I've come across a story which I feel is worth sharing. It happened in Russia several years ago. The Tsar came across a sentry standing at a secluded spot in the palace gardens. The Tsar could not understand the purpose of the guard. The spot had no military significance, and there was no danger to the Tsar in that location. Wondering about the reason behind the guard's presence at that location, the Tsar asked him his purpose. "Sergeant, what are you guarding?" Back came a quick reply from the guard. "I do not know, sir. I was merely assigned to this position by the captain of the guard." Well, the Tsar proceeded to call in the captain of the guard and ask him why there was a sentry in the middle of his gardens. "I do not know, sir. I was merely told to place a guard there by the previous captain of the guard." Becoming more puzzled and intrigued by the presence of a sentry in his gardens, the Tsar ordered research into the matter. Those responsible for dealing with research into such matters were put to work. After some time in searching the records, they learned that more than 100 years earlier, Catherine the Great had planted a rose bush at the spot where the guard stood and ordered a sentry post at that spot to protect the plant. So for more than 100 years, a guard had assumed his post, protecting he knew not what, a rose bush which no longer existed. How strong and equally silly sometimes are some of our traditions. We accept things past generations have passed down to us, never pausing long enough to ask why. Now, we must not, in our haste, throw out tradition simply because it is tradition. To do so would be a very foolish thing. Many traditions have a solid base and provide an effective purpose. But we must always be willing to question tradition in order that we can examine its purpose and usefulness. Tradition must never be accepted simply because it is tradition. Someone has coined the 7 last words of an institution as these: "We have always done it this way." Common sense allows us to see that it's not the institution that lives in the past, but the one that is in touch with the present and planning for the future that remains a vital society. The institution that is ruled by tradition soon ceases to exist, and rightfully so. The Galilean encouraged this attitude toward questioning tradition. On a hillside near the Sea of Galilee, he told his followers, "You've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not take revenge on one who does you wrong." Then he spoke again. "You've heard it said, love your friends and hate your enemies. But I say to you, love your enemies." You know, we could go on and on with examples, but just a casual reading of the Gospels will verify the fact that Jesus did not accept tradition simply because it was tradition. Let us not be hasty in destroying our traditions, but let us always be willing to question tradition. Who knows? We might find a few more dead rose bushes being guarded.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Matthew 19:14.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred here in the studios, and we thank you, as always, for listening to AFR. Well, one of the big questions coming up in the next few days, certainly in a few weeks, will be, what does President Trump do with regard to the January 6th prisoners? We've talked about that story many times. Sandy Rios here, one of our top podcasters, has covered it extensively, done interviews with the families. We all know what happened on January 6th. When was it? 4 years ago. It was an unfortunate situation, and we all saw what happened, and a lot of people got put in prison. Okay, when you break the law, you go to prison. That's the way it is. But when you become a political prisoner, all right, and you're persecuted beyond what would normally be applicable law, then you get into, well, persecution.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, is what you're talking about.
Yeah, you don't even get a trial.
Yeah, those kinds
in
of
prison.
things. And these folks in January 6th who were in prison, or jail, whatever you want to call it, they were basically left. Nobody wanted to talk about their plight. Nobody wanted to say, hey, are they being mistreated? What's going on here? Well, what are their rights? I mean, and so joining me to talk about this and what's going to, a group trying to do something to help these folks once they get out, is Gary Haven. Gary's a longtime friend and supporter of our ministry, and is involved in a lot of good works, as they say. Gary, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tim. Good morning, guys.
When last I saw you, you were taking your helicopter from Texas to North Carolina to help the victims of the flooding over there. You stayed over there a week or two, didn't you?
Yeah, we were part of the Operation Airdrop, which got supplies and food and water and rescued stranded people in the mountains of North Carolina. And I was one of the 100 volunteer helicopters that private citizens showed up to get the job done. And it was neat that Tupelo happened to be my fuel stop, and you and I got to have dinner, and catch up on things. So,
Amen.
yeah, it was an adventure, and now we got another adventure.
All right, talk about this. You sent me information on what's called American Patriot Relief, the Freedom's Ambassadors Project. What is this about?
Well, we know that Trump's made a promise. On Inauguration Day, he has said that he is going to pardon these victims that were persecuted for practicing the First Amendment, essentially. Now, with some disorders, yeah, but how much it was caused by the FBI plants that were in the crowd that we now know about, how much of the misjustice was a result of the video material that was withheld from these people by the government. I mean, I'm just American gulag. Well, these heroes are hopefully going to be released on Monday, and the process of release is very interesting. It's quite possible that Trump's going to sign the pardon after he gets sworn in at noon, and the prison system will be highly motivated to literally put these people out on the street. Because once the pardon is signed, the Bureau of Prisons now has liability for these people, and so they don't want to fool around with it. So we're anticipating that we may have up to 300 prisoners standing on the sidewalk around the country. And by the way, they are located in 75 different prisons in 35 different states. And so we have been able to assemble a team of what we call ambassadors that are going to be at the gates of those prisons ready to meet these heroes who are going to be literally thrown out onto the street with no notice. We're going to make sure that they're warm, they're fed, they've got a place, a hotel room. We're going to connect them with their families. If they need a ride home to their hometowns, we're going to provide that. And a number of them are a couple thousand miles away from home. And we have organized private jet aircraft. These jet aircraft owners have loaned their aircraft effective Monday to be available to fly these people home that have long distances to go. So we're going to take them home in dignity. And then there's another part of it, but I'll let you.
Go ahead.
Get a hold of that.
Go ahead.
Well, there's going to be people that don't have homes. They will have been in there for several years. They lost their family. They lost their homes. And so we have set up transitional homes. We've got in the Ozarks in southern Missouri, we've got a facility. In Waco, we have a beautiful facility to house a dozen people. In Fredericksburg, Texas, another 10. So these facilities will have care, counseling, food services, support. So we're going to try to meet these people at every possible need we can. And at the moment, this thing has happened fast and furious, and we think we have everything in place. We do need funding, and there's a Give, Send, Go account for Freedom's Ambassadors. And perhaps you guys could post that, and people could stand up and honor these heroes, these people that stood for all of our First Amendment rights and were severely punished for it.
What's what did you say, the way, you talking about if people want to make a financial donation? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. We've got to provide all sorts of services.
So how do they do? How do they do that? You said there was somewhere to go to make a donation.
Yeah, it's called Give, Send, Go, and it's all one word. GiveSendGo.com, and then it's /Freedoms FREEDOMS, ambassador.
Okay, I got it right
And,
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Tim, I probably ought to do an interview with one of your media guys, like I did at North Carolina, and then they can post this on the part of the story.
We will do that. We'll get with you after the show.
He'd be a good fit for Sandy Rios' program too.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Go ahead.
I love hearing that. That's fantastic. I'd love to talk with her.
Well, Sandy has covered, she's done a lot of interviews with the families and kept up with the plight of people.
Very well.
Yeah, and so, the stories about these folks not having legal representation and not having their day in court, and you know what I'm saying, right to a speedy trial. It's just like you called it a gulag. They were just thrown in jail and left to rot, and nobody. And
in some cases,
they didn't have due process like everybody else does.
And in some cases, the police officers said they wanted to pull the charges from the victim, and then the court system said, nope, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with exactly that. And I don't know that a lot of people know this, but they are arresting people right now. Yesterday, they arrested somebody in Canada, even knowing that this is imminent. A few weeks ago, they finally raided with assault rifles in a team this fellow who had paid for two buses to take people to the J6 event. He would not give the FBI the manifest of who was on those buses that he paid for. So they raided his house at gunpoint, arrested him, took his computer, got the manifest, and then they went after the 96 bus passengers that were there. And this is the day after the election where Trump won. So these monsters in the FBI and the Justice Department that are Soviet gulag criminals are still at it at this moment. It's just astounding. Hope to God that Trump will put an end to this criminality in this country.
Well, he can do that, as he says, on day one.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's ready to go. I would be shocked if it wasn't. The pardoning I'm talking about. Well, all right, Gary. Well, thanks so much for being on with us and sharing this story and this work with our listeners. Freedom's Ambassadors Project, that's what it's called?
Yes.
Okay, Freedom's Ambassadors Project. We put it on our Today's Issues Facebook page if you want to help out with the with what Gary talked about earlier in the program, the needs that these folks will be having once they are set free from jail or prison. I had no idea they were in 70 different
Well, I didn't either.
places.
Jails and prisons. GiveSendGo.com is the website where you can go if you want to contribute to this relief effort / Freedom's Ambassador.
Yeah.
So
all right, Gary, thanks so much. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay.
See you guys later.
Okay, bye-bye. That's Gary Haven joining us to talk about that.
One of the saddest things that Gary was talking about, and of course, I don't know why I hadn't thought of this, that this could have happened, but 4 years, some of these people lost their families. Probably spouses probably divorced them.
Their jobs.
They lost their jobs because it's 4 years. And the way that the Democratic Party and the Biden administration and the Biden Justice Department, the way they tried to circumvent the constitutional protections in the Bill of Rights was basically treating these people as terrorists. And I'm shocked that they didn't send some of them down to Guantanamo Bay and say, see, that's where we put terrorists. But I guess that's the way they got around the constitutional protections. But I hope some of these people sue the government. I know that's, there'd be the Trump Justice Department and the Trump under the Trump administration, but sue the federal government to try to recover something that they can, use to put their lives back together.
It's very interesting listening to Gary there. That's an incredible project that he has undertaken there. We talked off the top of the program today, the fact that as we sit here right now, President-elect Trump's selection to be the next Attorney General is Pam Bondi. She's before a Senate confirmation hearing. Listen to one of the statements from her opening remarks. Quote, "Under my watch, the partisan weaponization of the Department of Justice will end. America must have one tier of justice for all." And this is the bigger picture in all of this, is the weaponization of a Justice Department against Joe Biden's political enemies. Everybody knows it's true.
Right.
When you look at Donald Trump's case, multiple cases against him, but not only Donald Trump, but many others like those that are in prison now because they may have been knocked over a barrier on January the 6th.
Or maybe they just walked in.
Maybe they just walked in.
Yeah.
And that they were found guilty.
Nonviolent.
Yes. So Pam Bondi, it's very interesting. She was asked 2 or 3 times by Democrats, now, what are you going to do? Because Trump has said he's going to pardon these people on day one. What are you going to do about that?
That's what they asked her?
Yes. She said, I will look at each case individually. And if in fact a police officer was assaulted, I will look at that case.
Right.
Now, do you go to prison for 7 years for an assault on a police officer? Let me think about Black Lives Matter protests. Police stations were burnt down.
Right.
Police officers were injured. I'm not aware of any of those people going to jail.
No. In fact, Kamala Harris encouraged people to make a financial donation for their bail.
Yes.
In many, remember that?
Well, yeah, but you guys are okay. Those are mostly peaceful protests.
Yeah.
Okay, so
while the buildings burned
in the
background.
I'm kidding, folks.
Yeah.
I think what she's talking about there, everyone should be able to agree on. We have equal justice under the law, and we don't go after people because of their political views, which is what happened to Mark Houck.
Yes.
And some others that we've talked about here. Gentleman from Pennsylvania who was a pro-lifer, and they went after him.
Mm-hmm.
The Justice Department, United States Justice Department, went after him for something that was what am I trying to say? They had no business going after him. Or raided his home early in the morning.
Yeah, same thing with Mark Houck.
Guns drawn.
7
That's just what I said.
Yeah,
Mark Houck. Anyway. All right, so you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Yesterday, potential Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had his day before the United States Senate. Today, Pam Bondi, the potential, again, Attorney General or soon-to-be Attorney General of the United States. She was AG of the state of Florida. I don't know how many years she served in that capacity. Do you know, Fred?
She was appointed in 2010.
Yeah, 8 or 10 years, I think. Yeah.
So is that an appointment or an elected position?
I will check on that.
While you're looking that up, don't we have some other ones today as well, or is it just Pam Bondi today?
No, we also have Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, who is Trump's pick to be Secretary of State. Now, most people are thinking that's going to be kind of a pretty easy one.
Easier of all of them.
Of all of them. And then you have Ratcliffe, who is
he'll take up
Trump
the focus.
Choice. Yeah, he's going to be head of the CIA. So those hearings are all going on today.
Elected position.
Elected.
So Bondi won in the 2010 election.
Well, she has attorney generals. She's been in that. How long was she there?
8 years.
8 years of attorney general of the state of Florida.
It was probably term limited too, was it?
I think so, because that looks like 2 4-year terms.
She's a lot of experience, and So anyway, I think is there anybody left that is questionable whether they'll be voted yes or no on in the Senate, because Hegseth is said to have the votes.
RFK Jr., I would guess.
When does he come up?
I don't know. I haven't seen.
He's not scheduled yet.
Yeah.
The other one, and his name came up this morning already in the Pam Bondi hearing, is Kash Patel. He is Trump's pick to head the FBI.
And I think I read something where probably next week.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, is there any chance he might lose in a vote, or does that depend on his hearing, or what?
I would think the only ones that are probably controversial would be RFK Jr. and Kash Patel at this point, and Pete Hegseth. I'm not sure I remember any of the others.
But Hegseth is said to have the votes. I think John Thune Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, told President Trump, we got the votes to pass Hegseth.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
And I also heard that.
Right.
There may be some others, like Linda McMahon, who's nominated for, I think, Department of Education.
Well, listen.
So there'll be. We're going to see what Pete Hegseth went through. We're probably going to see that for all of them, all of Trump's nominees.
Right.
They're not. They're going to give them all a hard time. Now, whether
So,
they get the
Senator,
votes out of it.
who's the chairman of this committee?
Chuck Grassley.
Chuck Grassley? Like, he was in the Lincoln administration, wasn't he?
90-plus years old.
Yeah. And would you say you said he still goes for a walk?
Yeah,
at
he was
4 in the
interviewed.
morning?
He was interviewed this morning, and he was asked, did he go for his morning walk? Because his practice is he gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and he goes for a walk. Because they're asking you.
He's the Iowa Republican.
Yeah, I'm going to say I don't know that I give him a whole lot of credit. You get to a certain age, you're going to wake up at 4 in the morning anyway to take care of some business. It's not necessarily a sign of personal discipline.
If he goes for a walk, it is.
No, that's true.
No, here's the other point. He didn't go for a walk this morning because it is so cold.
For an Iowa boy, that's
So for those about to attend the inauguration.
Oh, man. Listen to this. I was looking at this because we're going.
Yeah.
We're going up there. But I'm not going down to the Capitol. I don't care.
You're going to the inauguration and you're not going to.
I'm not going down. I'm gonna sit in a. We got a place where we've rented.
Yeah.
Okay, you can go. This is a long. You can buy a ticket. You can have a place to watch along Pennsylvania Avenue.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking it up now.
At a restaurant, it's really nice. Now,
yeah.
I had to pay.
You can eat a bear claw and drink some
I had to
coffee.
take out a second mortgage.
Right.
But we're now. There's a group of us going. It's going to be a good time. We're going to have fun. But there's some folks, and there are people listening to me right now who are also going to D.C. for the inauguration, who are going to go down to the Capitol for the
go outside
for the swearing-in ceremony. Yeah. Okay, my friends. I don't care where you're from, Minnesota or Mississippi. Listen to this.
This is brutal.
Let me look this up real quick.
I got it right here.
You got it? All right. Over to our meteorologist, Wesley Wildmon, who will tell us the weather for Inauguration Day in our nation's capital. Wesley?
So the high is 27. The low is 12 degrees. That's at night, obviously.
Yeah.
With the wind gusts up to 20 miles an hour.
Okay.
So the wind chill is going to be
7. It's going to make it. It's going to feel like 7 degrees when you're standing out there.
That's right.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
I'm just going to tell you right now, there's some of us not coming home from that. And it won't be me. I'm taking care of number one, buddy. I'm 61 years old. I'm not going out. Listen, I've shaken Donald Trump's hand.
Yeah.
Been one, so I don't need that.
Right.
I don't need to see him in person.
Sounds like you're trying to convince yourself that this is the right call.
It's going to be the right call, all right.
All right, now let me ask you
there's
this.
Wesley, there's going to be some of my friends calling me saying.
It's going to feel like -4 on Tuesday, so we're coming home Tuesday, so that's good.
Okay, can I ask
It gets colder
ask
Tuesday.
a
Go ahead.
personal question?
Go ahead.
Okay. I know how you feel about cold weather. You hate cold weather.
I hate it
as much as anybody I know.
With a passion.
But now, is there a chance that while you're sitting in your little Starbucks or whatever on Pennsylvania Avenue, watching
it's not Starbucks, it's another restaurant, but go ahead.
Okay, all right. Is there a chance that Allison, your wife, is going to go and stand outside with the rest of the crew?
No, we have some disagreements in our marriage, but hatred for cold weather is a bonding.
Okay.
We stand together.
You're on the same page.
Now I feel like we need to ask him what happened in his childhood to hate cold so bad.
Well, listen, in my childhood, it was fun going out and playing in the snow and all this stuff.
Okay, so it's more an age thing.
I think so.
Because I've drifted towards Tim's position on cold weather. I always loved when Mississippi turned cold.
Yeah.
I loved being able to put sweatshirts on and sweaters. but the last year or two, I have felt it deep, deep in my bones.
Yeah.
And I've determined that I don't like it anymore.
No, when you go out in the morning, first thing you open the door and you say to yourself, "Why am I even alive?" Who's doing this to me? What have I done?
What have I done?
And if you can even see your car because it's dark.
Yeah.
Okay. And you
it's
see
dark when you leave home and dark when you leave work.
All that frost on it.
Listen, that'll make you appreciate.
I don't blame you in terms of not standing out in the cold. What's the point?
Well, I know. Now, in Mississippi, we have, I would say, what qualifies. I know people in Minnesota right now are going to say you have no idea, and I know we have no idea.
Right.
But we have about 1 month of cold weather. Okay, maybe 6 weeks.
If you add up all the days, because the next week will be 60, and then the next week's 20.
Yeah, well, 62 here tomorrow.
Right, that's my point. So if you add up all the days, probably a month of cold.
Yeah, about a month of cold. By cold, I mean it doesn't get above 45 in the day, and at night it drops to 22 or below. I mean that's
what's the Canadian think? We're almost here
he's
to
laughing.
the break.
He's smirking over here.
Well, no.
Yeah,
I have been here almost 28 years.
Okay. Grew up in Nova Scotia, Canada.
That's right.
Lived in the sunny South.
Yeah, my blood has thinned out remarkably, and I am glad when January is over.
Yes.
There's a reason why people moved to Florida.
Yes, I used to mock them, and now
Your dad did that,
and now I wouldn't mind being them.
Right. Your dad lived in New England for a long, long time.
Oh yeah.
And then
moved
when
to
he
Florida.
retired, where'd he go?
Yep. Boca Raton.
I've seen people
or La
say,
Boca Vista, as they would say on Seinfeld.
I've seen people on the internet say, "Yeah, but it gets hot and muggy in the South or in Florida in the summer," and I go, "So."
You still play golf when it's hot.
Yeah,
You can't play golf when
give
it's
me
20 degrees.
95 all day, every day, rather than
air conditioning.
20 degrees.
Air conditioning is a better cure for hot and muggy.
That's what I'm talking about.
Than trying to get warm after you've been freezing outside.
Yeah. Then when you walk outside and your back stiffens up before you take a step, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more meteorology coming up in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
As a federal or state employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the combined federal campaign. By designating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037, you help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Peter. President Trump's nominee for U.S. Attorney General sits for a confirmation hearing with the Senate Judiciary Committee. Eben Brown reports.
Senate Judiciary Republicans are lauding the selection by President Trump of former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi as U.S. Attorney General, but ranking Democrat Dick Durbin of Illinois spent his time questioning her about the 2020 election, especially in Georgia.
Are you not concerned that the President of the United States called a state election official and asked them to find enough votes to change the results of the election?
Senator, I have not listened to the hour-long conversation, but it's my understanding that is not what he asked him to do.
Georgia's case against President Trump is currently in legal limbo. Bondi used her time to highlight her prosecution efforts during the opioid epidemic. Eben Brown, Fox News.
President Trump's nominee to head the CIA, John Ratcliffe, facing questioning from senators on Capitol Hill today. Ratcliffe is a former director of national intelligence under the first Trump administration and was a staunch supporter of the president-elect. Senate Intelligence Committee Chair Tom Cotton voicing his support for Ratcliffe. He also called out the CIA for their recent failures.
In just the last few weeks, the members of this committee and, I presume, the president had no forewarning of the New Orleans terrorist attack or the collapse of the Assad tyranny in Syria. The same goes for Hamas's October 7th atrocity against Israel in 2023.
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee holding a confirmation hearing for Florida Senator Marco Rubio to be President Trump's Secretary of State. Rubio promises to prioritize the interests of the United States if confirmed for the role and help fulfill the mandate given to the president by American voters this past November.
They want a strong America engaged in the world, but guided by a clear objective to promote peace abroad and security and prosperity here at home. That is the promise that President Trump was elected to keep.
The Biden administration gave nearly 7,000 exemptions, mostly to refugees, for foreign nationals who otherwise could be ineligible for admission to the U.S. due to terrorism-related entry restrictions, a significantly higher number than in recent years. Chad Wolf is the former acting DHS secretary and executive director at the America First Policy Institute. He says, according to the CBP's final report for the Biden administration, 1.5 million migrants entered the country under programs like CBP One app and migrant flights.
We know that some of those individuals in those two programs weren't properly vetted, and we know that because the DHS Inspector General has issued several reports along that line.
One university's Pride Center says so-called fat phobia is, quote, rooted in anti-blackness. As a result, it calls for students to champion fat bodies.
San Diego State University's Pride Center says that, quote, anti-fatness/fat phobia is intrinsically rooted in anti-blackness, racism, classicism, misogyny, homophobia, and many other systems of oppression. Society increasingly separates itself based on numerous factors: race, hatred of police, religion, political viewpoint, gender and sexuality, and now fatness? Efforts to sow more and more division continue. But why? Senior research fellow Jonathan Butcher with the Heritage Foundation tells AFN it's simply to cause destruction of our current system of government. The goal is to divide us so we collapse. He started off describing the idea of, quote, fat phobia being a system of oppression.
The idea is that there are multiple ways in which individuals can be oppressed, right? And all of the oppression is systemic. According to intersectionality, Western society is just set up to oppress certain people, and the oppression can be multi-layered.
He said it's a systemic idea. He added one of its biggest weaknesses is that it's very hard to pin down exactly what they're pointing to is the issue.
Intersectionality encompasses some of the applications of critical race theory as the pursuit of victimhood. Those who are in favor of intersectionality are going to claim that there has to be some big institutional, i.e. governmental structure that has to be torn down or replaced or destroyed. They have never posted clear solutions for what they want to replace things with. I mean, once they've torn down society, they have said what they want to put in its place.
I'm Bronson Wood.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
AFA founder Don Wildmon was a visionary. He saw the negative influence the movie and TV industries had on society and knew their technology could be used as tools to counteract the evil taking over our culture. That vision is realized in American Family Studios. We're committed to producing feature films, animated series, and documentaries that glorify God by upholding His standards. Find out how AFS can impact your family and friends at AmericanFamilyStudios.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Live radio here, Wednesday, January the 15th, 2025. I'm Tim Wildmon with Ed Battagliano, Wesley Wildmon, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us in studio. Good morning, Steve.
Morning, everybody.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be seen. I'm happy to be here.
We have breaking news from the Middle East.
We do, and the details are very, very sketchy, but Israel and Hamas have agreed to a Gaza ceasefire, according to several news sources in the U.S. and in Israel.
Does this mean the hostages will be released?
Well, this is what we don't know. This is what I'm reading from CNN. Israel and Hamas agreed to a deal that will pause the fighting in Gaza and lead to the phased release of hostages and Palestinian prisoners. Implementation is likely to start on Sunday. Hamas is expected to release 33 hostages during the first phase of an emerging deal. Hundreds of Palestinian prisoners are set to be released from Israel jails at the same time. The release of the hostages would be the first phase of the deal being finalized, negotiations to reach the second phase, which is intended to end the war, would begin on the 16th day of the implementation of the deal. So it always amazes me that Hamas we're going to give you 33 people, you're going to give us hundreds of our prisoners, terrorists that you've been holding. So anyway, a lot of people are saying that this might not be the best deal for Israel, but it's the deal that's on the table. So,
Ed?
Well, I think as more details unfold, I think that Israel just wants to get those hostages out. They're willing to make what might consider an unfair trade to get them, and then I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to prosecute their war effort against Hamas. I think that's why you get the phased release of these hostages by Hamas. Because you release some, you want to drag this out.
I'm sure that Hamas won't just release all of them, and because they're shields as well as hostages.
Right.
So
but a deal to release the hostages and end the war or a ceasefire has to take place. I mean, pretty quick. You don't say we're going to 35 and then next year we'll do another deal.
Right.
So listen, okay, I'm just going to give you my opinion. I haven't done 24 hours of thought on this. This is just my opinion, my reaction to this, as somebody who's been to Israel many times and who loves Israel. This is good, okay, because what Israel has done in the last 15 months is crush Hamas militarily, and I think their spirit, so to speak. We'll see in time. Now, do those people still teach hatred for the Jews? Yes, and they will until the end of time. Okay, sadly. But that's why Israel has to deal with them so harshly. Otherwise, they'll reload with rockets next year, and they'll be back at it again. Because these people, that's how they are. So Israel has to win with overwhelming military might, which they have in Gaza.
Yeah.
And Gaza, from pictures I've seen, basically just rubble, okay? I feel sorry for the children who have to live in that and the people who don't believe in the violence that Hamas does, but yet they can't say anything or else their heads will be cut off, because it's kind of like the mafia or a gang that rules the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You just live there and keep your mouth shut.
Right.
If you may disagree with the gang or the mafia, but you don't dare say something because otherwise they'll visit you and your family.
Yes.
You know how that works?
I mean,
that's
not personally.
Okay.
Because I'm Italian.
Yeah. But that's the same type situation with Hamas and the Palestinian
Absolutely.
people.
I think we would like to think that there are more of those than there are, though.
Yeah. So we'll see. Anyway, this is good news. And maybe we'll talk to Mike Huckabee, the ambassador to Israel for Trump, coming up. Might talk to him about this. But this is good news, and I think with them crushing also Hezbollah on the north, this is going to lead to peace and security in the region, and will people in Israel are returning back to normality. So anyway, all right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Well, one thing that's about to change from a federal government perspective is the transgendered issue. Biden and Harris obviously have favored the idea that transgendered people can say whatever they are, and thus they are, and they can compete in sports. Boys can go in girls' changing areas and showers and participate on sports teams and all this nuttiness that a lot of the Democrat Party supports. That's changing now. And
not the Democrat support.
Not the Democrat support, but with Trump administration and the Republicans in control. Joining us to talk about it is Paula Scanlon. She's with the Riley Gaines Center. Everybody knows who Riley Gaines is. Most people do, listening to our program. She's been on our program several times before And Paula Scanlon is an ambassador with and works closely with Riley Gaines. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
What do you think about what I just said?
Yeah, I mean, we saw a great win in the House of Representatives yesterday, and I was even more surprised that there were actually 2 Democrats that voted in favor, which the last time we saw this bill, we didn't see any Democrats vote for it. But then I also realized that there's 206 Democrats that still believe men should play women's sports. So we still have a lot of work to do on convincing some of these people who are voted into office into thinking common sense things.
Okay, so the bill you're talking about was in the House of Representatives in Washington yesterday. And the vote, for those who don't know, the vote was about what?
The vote was called the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, and it was essentially to just make policy to say men should not compete in women's sports, whether it be young girls, whether it be college-age athletes, whether it be anyone in between. In my opinion, it's very common sense. I don't know why anyone would disagree, but again, there were 206 Democrats that voted against it.
So it did pass.
It did pass.
Yeah.
Paula, let our listeners know you have personal experience with this issue. You were a UPenn swimmer, weren't you? And just share a little bit about why you were working with the Riley Gaines Center. And second of all, do you think the majority of Americans are catching on to the common sense approach that you're taking?
Yes. So I was a swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania, so that male athlete that tied with Riley infamously at the NCAA championship, he was my teammate. And in that experience, my teammates and I were forced to undress alongside this fully grown male athlete by the name of Leah Thomas 18 times every single week. And anytime we tried to raise concerns about it to the administration or the athletic department or the Ivy League or the NCAA, we were told that we were the problem. We were told that our feelings did not matter. And worst of all, we were told that we needed help, and they referred us to psychological services and said, please go seek counseling. You need help. You are the problem. So I saw very quickly, again, that the feelings of one male individual was prioritized over the feelings of all of us female athletes. And again, there were many girls who lost opportunities through him competing, whether it be on my team because we could only bring so many girls to each competition, or even at the NCAA championship when he ultimately won the NCAA championship in the 500-yard freestyle, beating out female Olympians were the athletes that placed after him. So that is what I experienced, and that's why I know this is so important. I don't want any girl to go through that. In terms of the general public, I think we really are, the tide is turning a little bit. I do see Democrats that have said that they don't agree with this. I think the majority of people in this country, and I think polling shows at least 80% of this country agrees that this issue is wrong. And that definitely will include people, again, from all different political ideologies. So we still have work to do because, unfortunately, the people out in Washington don't represent the general public. I don't think most of the constituents of the people who voted against this bill yesterday agree with this, which is so sad that they're able to just be taken over by these really loud, crazy people that are trying to push ridiculous ideology. But maybe that's why they really ultimately lost this past election so royally.
Hey, Paul, it's Steve Jordahl here. To your point, I'm reading in, I think it was the LA Times, talking about this bill, and no, the New York Times, and they say Democrats have taken a new tack on this. They are accusing Republicans of having some what they call creepy fixation on women's bodies, which, yeah, like you're saying, it's just nonsensical. I wanted to play you, if I could, Paula, quote, a soundbite. Speaker Johnson was asked about the bill. The reporter, it's a little hard to hear at the beginning, but he says, I've heard you quote Scripture a whole bunch of times. Where do you find this in Scripture? Listen, I'd like to get your reaction, Paula, to this, cut 17.
You led off by saying that man is not be a man. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman, and a couple women get that's what Scripture teaches. That's at least the second time I've heard you reference that. Can you say why you think Christian Scripture teaches that? I'm curious about your response to various other Christian traditions. Interpreting Scripture differently.
Well, it goes back to the first book in Genesis. Male and female, he made them. I mean, this is pretty clear. I'm not sure there's another interpretation, but everybody's open to interpreting Scripture however they will. But this is comports with common sense as well. So we know it from our religious tradition, which I believe is the truth. I'm a Bible-believing Christian, make no apology about that. But whether you regard that as the truth or not, it's also nature. It's biology. And biology is not bigotry, as we say. Anyone who would accuse the supporters of this legislation otherwise is ill-informed. This is to protect women and girls. It's very clear. It's been articulated well, and you've heard examples. Riley is one of the most famous, but again, it happens all the time, all across the country. Congress has a role to play here. We should step into this arena, and it's an appropriate thing for us to do. So we make no apology for it. And this is not out of dislike or discrimination against anybody at all. This is the right thing to do, and it's to protect women and girls, and that's our role here.
Paula, what's your reaction to that?
Well,
yeah, he's absolutely correct. I mean, this is not an issue discriminating against anyone. This is about protecting girls. Again, I know my own experience. I'm also great friends with Riley. I'm great friends with female athlete by the name of Peyton McNabb, high school volleyball player out of North Carolina, and she was permanently injured by a male athlete competing on the opposing team. And so, again, this is dangerous, and it's unfair. It's dangerous, and just not right. And again, this is not against anyone. This is about protecting women and standing with women. And ultimately, that's why all of us that have joined this fight have really gotten into the position where we are. We want to protect the next generation, and we want to see them have the benefits that sports gave us.
Now, where's the website that they can go to find out more about this?
Yes, RileyGainesCenter.org. And we're there as a resource. If you're going through this, we are here to support you. And I think that's the biggest thing we've been able to do is we were put in a situation we didn't have a support system, and now we're able to step in, and we've been able to be in contact with girls that are going through this. We helped work with the athletes that boycotted most recently in NCAA volleyball against a male athlete competing out of San Jose State University. And so that's something we've been able to do. And again, if you're going through this, we want to help you. We want to support you. We want to amplify your story. And again, make it easy to talk about this and make it not something people are afraid of saying out loud.
Well, listen, thanks so much, Paula, for being on with us. You and Riley, appreciate y'all's work on behalf of girls everywhere, and we keeping the common sense separation between male and female in athletic competition. It just seems like something that everybody would agree with. But you got these far left nut jobs out here who keep promoting the idea that men can be women, and the competition is somehow equal still, even though everybody knows it's not.
Right.
And there's a reason in all of human history, we've had separation all over the world in everything, male and female. But no, the whole world's been ignorant for thousands of years, according to these folks.
We just needed AOC to come along and straighten us out. So.
Thank you, Paula. Appreciate it very much. Take care.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. That's Paula Scanlon.
That was a wonderful interview.
Listen, people like Paula and Riley are very courageous young women. And the reason I say that is because not only are they going against the grain, but they're right out of college.
Yeah, sure.
They basically said, okay, I know this would keep me from getting a job in corporate America if that's what they had intended to do. But they don't care. They're standing up for what's right and
early
taking
20s.
slings and arrows. Early 20s. I've said frequently, young people in our country, sometimes us older generations, are unfair in criticizing younger people. But people like Paula and Riley are showing that there are really smart, dedicated, courageous, articulate people who are standing up for what's right. So I salute Paula and
all right,
Riley.
Steve, next story.
All right, just a little update. They're still fighting strong winds and red flag warnings in Southern California. There are several fires that are still active. The two that they're most concerned with are the Palisades fire, which is the first one that broke out. They're still trying to contain that one, and the Eaton fires. 88,000 people are under evacuation orders, and another 84,000 are under evacuation warnings, saying they might have to get out. There's strong winds between 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. today, so it started 3 a.m. Pacific time, and go through early afternoon. The fires have burned 38,000 acres in Los Angeles County. So
it's today that they're expecting these Santa Ana winds to pick up to 75 miles an hour, right?
That's correct.
Which increases the threat of the fires growing.
Yeah, it's
high
almost
risk.
impossible to.
It's a high risk time, right?
Almost 170,000 people either in an evacuation being told to
out of their
evacuate
homes
or be ready to go.
to.
That where do they go unless you have family members? There's not enough hotel rooms.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can answer that because we know people personally here. We've got one of our staff now who has a brother whose house burned to the ground in Los Angeles, and he's flying out there to help out with them. They're in a hotel.
Yeah.
Well, you can't stay in a hotel forever. I mean, and they're in a hotel trying to figure out what to do, and they're kind of in a little bit of a daze, if you will, as a lot of people are probably out there. Because remember, a lot of these folks had to get out quick.
Yeah. Yes.
And then only to learn that they're not going home to anything.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's psychologically, that's just. It's one thing to say there's a hurricane coming; it'll be here in 5 days.
That's right.
Yeah.
And get ready, and then mostly with hurricanes, it's like not complete and utter destruction. It's like got tarps on roofs. You've got.
Yeah.
I'm not diminishing the impact of hurricanes directly on a coast, but I'm just saying with these people, they were told, okay, you need to leave, and then they left and then never went back, and they're not going back, and everything they've had is burned to the ground. So. It's cost, and then hotel rooms, it's probably going to be hard to find.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
At some point, there won't be vacancies anywhere.
I got a serious question here.
Yeah.
And I'm known to be sarcastic.
That was a serious question.
That's right. I'm known to be sarcastic at times, but in all seriousness.
I don't know where you learned that from, but anyway.
Is the issue with water in the fire hydrant resolved?
No, I don't know about the fire hydrants, but there's a lack of water. They can't just make water appear.
Right.
So there's
probably the same answer for
Okay, I'm a little bit unclear about this, and maybe you can or can't. I don't know, Steve. We didn't talk about this prior to the program. Or maybe you guys know the answer to this, because I've read about the reservoir, and I've seen the reservoir in pictures. Mm-hmm. The reservoir I'm talking about was empty. It was supposed to be used by the Palisades Fire Department to put out fires. And maybe they had a little water, but they didn't have what they needed, obviously, because the reservoir was empty. The reservoir was empty because it was under repair and had been under repair for a year or whatever. This is what I read.
Right.
Okay. So, and I also heard that that Newsom, governor of California, and the Democrats out there, and they're almost all Democrats, they did not make use of the runoff water from the record snow and rainfall, especially in central and northern California, that they let a lot of it go into the ocean instead of saving it because of a fish. They didn't want the fish to be exterminated.
Smelt.
Now,
potentially,
is that
it wasn't guaranteed.
The things I've just talked about. Do you know any truth, fiction, or can you clear up some of that for me?
Those are accurate statements of the fact, and so if the reservoir was broken and it can't hold water, it can't hold water. But if they'd known about it for a year,
right,
and they've known fire season is on the way,
right,
and they predicted a long time ago it was going to be a bad one, it doesn't take a year to fix this thing.
And the city of Los Angeles also severely cut the budget of the fire department.
Are you saying though, Dad, that them not holding the water in the reservoir, that water goes to the fire hydrants?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, then that does answer.
Yep. And they didn't have any water to fight the fire. That's why it spread. Of course, they may have spread anyway, in part because of the
what's the point
winds.
of a fire hydrant?
If you don't have water
in it.
They may. My guess is they probably had a little water to fight okay, we got a fire at 105 Lincoln Boulevard. Need to get down here, but not. Hey, the whole town's on fire.
Right.
You know
that may be true. Okay, but they went to certain fire hydrants for the first time and there was nothing there.
Yeah,
that's because it comes from the reservoir that other firemen had been using.
I can't imagine the fire department not having any water at all to begin with. I think they were probably overwhelmed. And you know how when you're watering your yard, I don't know if this is a good equivalent. Or
we'll judge you. There's three of us.
Okay,
Well,
you know how when you're in your yard and you're watering your yard or your flowers or whatever like that, and there's no water pressure. You know why? Because you look down the street and 5 of your neighbors have got their water on too. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of thing where you got overusage and there's not enough water pressure, that kind of thing happened to these folks too. So anyway, we got to wrap this up. We're gonna wrap this show up. Who's going to?
We got a funny story, don't we?
Well, yeah, I wanted to make sure that we got run this by Ed, because he's, of course, the resident Italian. But Ed, do you have an opinion on pineapple on pizza?
Yes.
What's your opinion?
It's an abomination.
Well, there's a pizza.
That went further than I was going. I'd say it was a sin, but I guess that's one of the same. It's a stronger word.
There's a pizzeria in Norwich, England, that agrees with you. It's called Lupa Pizza, and but they believe in serving the customer, so they will put pineapple on a pizza for you. However, you'll have to pay $100 for the pizza.
Listen, I love that idea because that is deterrence. We've heard of, deterring crime with, public executions, the death penalty. This is how you deter people from making a huge culinary mistake.
That's going to be a terrible
putting
clip.
pineapple on pizza is you charge $100 and you're going to set people on the right path. I like this idea.
Go ahead.
This is what the owner says. Is if pineapple wins the vote because he's having a vote, I'll make it, but I won't be happy about it, and I might charge £200 next time.
Now, I just want to make sure we're not misunderstood, because a lot of times people take out of context what we say here on the program. You're not saying you're in favor of executing people who put pineapple on pizza, right?
I haven't given it much thought, Tim. I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Okay, well, you think about that. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody, for the program today. We hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Keep listening to American Family Radio, and we'll see you Thursday. That's tomorrow.